Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Road Less Taken, the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and succeeded at them. My name is Venky Srinivasan, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking to a couple of very interesting people. Both of them started in IT-related jobs at a prominent tech company, and Deeptha Vivekanand followed her heart and became a storyteller and invented a role for herself as storyteller in residence. Her husband, Rahul Sharma, decided to move from consulting to crops and is today an organic farmer at his farm near Chandigarh. So in today's very special episode of TRLT, please welcome Deeptha Vivekanand and Rahul Sharma. Hi guys, welcome to The Road Less Taken and absolutely thrilled to have you guys here on the show.
Hello.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks for having us.
Great. So I'll begin with you, Deeptha, and I will ask you what were some of the influences that happened in your early growing up days, which shaped the way you are today.
I grew up mostly with my grandparents around me. So stories were always in the air, right? And I can't, remember a day that didn't pass without listening to a story of some sort. And also, my parents were both journalists, and they were in advertising as well for a long time. So everything is, at the end of the day, a form of storytelling, right? That it was always in my life, and it had to happen, I suppose.
And Rahul?
I think when we were growing up, my dad would always come summer holidays, and my dad would always take us, all the kids, to the village. And we would actually hate that.
Okay. And this village was where? Where were you growing up? And where was the village?
We were growing up in Kurukshetra, Haryana.
Okay.
We would hate that because we were like city kids,
Right.
and we hate going to Gaon, and there was flies everywhere when we would wake up, and there was no washrooms, and we'll go out in the open. I still remember those things very distinctly. Right. But I think how it actually played a part, it could have, like when I actually started thinking about doing farming. Mm-hmm. I think there was this connection which I had, and in emotional connect, or there's a farm, ancestral land is there since past 100 years. Slowly, my grandfather, great grandfather built it. So I think there was this connection, and I think that played a part when I finally took that decision.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And both of you in some sense started off with what I might call conventional job careers, and that too in technology in Bangalore, in the same company as well. That phase went on for how long for both of you, and at what point of time during that phase did the thought of this kind of transition come to mind?
So I was I had a fairly predictable approach to things. So there was school, there was college, and then you had to decide what stream you had to pick. Right. So I chose business studies, and then after that, the master's, the management program had to happen. So it was fairly assembly line. Right. And then I started working, and the last organization I worked with was, of course, Wipro. So while stumbling through all of that, you already a good part of your life kind of goes. So, 8 years you've been working, and suddenly you look back and say, what have you done in your life? Which is
And what were you doing at work actually? What was your?
So I was in corporate learning and development.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, at some point you want to take stock of what you've been doing in your life all this time. And that's when on a random Google search is when I found out about storytelling as a this new tool that is being used in learning environments across the world, and especially in corporate learning and development. Right. So it just kind of piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to the other, of course, and then I did a couple of certification courses, and I began to realize that I did have a natural sort of inclination towards telling stories and working with stories. And like I said before, I think it kind of harks back to my growing up years, being surrounded by stories all the time. Right. So it seemed like a very natural fit. And during that process, I also started finding my voice as a performance storyteller. I really enjoyed telling stories to people. And the response that I would get from the audience was also very, very encouraging.
Right.
So what started off essentially as a side project then sort of began to consume me, because there is just so much that one needs to learn in storytelling, that I thought, I should give this my complete attention. So all this time, I really wasn't connecting to anything that I was doing, although there were interesting experiences along the way.
Sure. Yeah.
But something has to hook you in whatever you do. And that I found while I was telling stories and working with stories.
And Rahul?
It's completely the other way around. So very unconventional. I moved on from one thing to another without having any background in what I'm going to do next. I graduated in economics and statistics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then the computers were relatively new.
Right.
It just come in. Everybody was it was a very exotic thing to have a computer at home.
Right.
So then I just got hooked onto that. And from there, I took a holiday and I visited my sister in Indonesia. And then I just started working. There was an Indian guy with an IT company there. And he said, I said, you want to come and work with us? I said, why not?
Wow.
Anyway, so I learned on the job.
Okay.
And that was that. And then from there, so it was about 1996. And that's where my IT career started.
Okay.
And client management, account mining, all those things.
Travel.
Yeah. And that took me to eventually to Wipro. So my last 8 years were in Wipro.
Okay.
And again, a very different type of job in IT. So I left projects and I came into trainings.
Oh, okay.
So So I joined learning and development in Wipro. That's where I met her.
Right.
So, and then again, another thing, again, totally not connected to IT. So after 19 years of IT, left everything within 1 week and farming.
Wow. All right.
Very, very unconventional and stumbling along the way.
Absolutely unconventional, I would say. So Deeptha, when you were kind of looking at this whole storytelling, piece, and you decided to make this transition, I mean, what did you find? What kind of gave you a little bit of conviction that this could actually be like a full-time profession or a business? Did you see other companies in India already doing that, or did you see that you had a chance to be the pioneer in this? What was the thinking?
So there were a couple of names in the storytelling space, but while I connected with them, so the whole sort of the canvas opened up. So then I could begin to see that it's actually an industry, not so much in India, but at that time outside the West, and countries like Singapore had really thriving storytelling setups already. And that's when education became this, this very important space to plug storytelling into. And since I had been doing corporate learning and development, storytelling was anyway something that I was using, although in a very small way.
Right.
But what I had also observed back then was a lot of the problems that we were trying to solve through training interventions always goes back to the kind of childhood that everyone has.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. The kind of education that they've been exposed to. And when you're trying to fix those problems when someone's already reached their, sort of middle management career stage, it's very hard. So then I started thinking about why not go to the very,
go back to the roots, so to say.
Exactly. Yeah. And start engaging with children and teachers who are dealing with education at that level. Evangelize storytelling, so to speak. Now it's been 10 years, so now I can see how the industry has grown. But back then it was a lot of trial and error, but there was also a lot of conviction that this is needed. And this is something that, that will have implications going forward. So, and talking to Rahul at that time, we were not married, but we were, I was still bouncing off a lot of ideas off him. And he was also very, supportive and also very encouraging of the fact that what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
It will fail, so it's okay. But at least you would have tried.
Literally, you're the only person I know who's actually managed to create a job position and a job description for herself by becoming a storyteller in residence in a school, right? I mean,
Yeah, so
I'm sure this must be the only school in India that probably has a storyteller in residence. So tell us a
I
little bit
think
about
so.
that.
I think so. It was surprising to me too. And what was interesting is that this came up only after we had moved to Chandigarh.
Okay.
So I was working in Bangalore and a little bit in Chennai, which is home. But never in any of those interactions that I've had with schools did this even come up in conversation. So it was still a very hard sell where you had to go to the school and convince the management that this is something that will work.
And it would still be a one-off, right? You will say that I'll do a workshop or I'll do a session or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was still hard days then, but I think when I moved to Chandigarh, within the first year or so is when I came to meet the people that in the school that I'm working with right now. And they immediately they said, oh, we were looking for something like this, and it's so wonderful that like you. Yeah. So it was providence, I would say.
Right.
But it's also something that I wanted deep down. A lot of my references again were from the kind of setups that existed in schools in the US and UK, where storytellers go in and do residencies, work with students and teachers very closely. But it was a pipe dream. It was always, oh, how I wish we could do something like that in school here.
Right.
And then when I moved here, it all happened. So it was very strange for me to even make sense of the fact that I worked in so many of the big cities and the big schools all this time, but none of this came up. But now the moment I moved to a small city, it's opened up. How does that happen? Right? So yeah, that's how it works.
That's an interesting paradigm, and I'll come to that with my next question. But before that, I want to ask you, Rahul, about this whole thinking through this transition and making it happen.
Thinking through is her part. Mine is taking the plunge.
Okay.
But anyway, like she said, she saw a problem and thought of solving that problem through storytelling. So I went into something very, very basic, which is food. And food was a big problem. And I think that was what triggered was this awareness, which I now actually cannot point a finger how. I think it just builds up slowly.
Okay.
And through reading, through talking to people, through seeing what's happening around you. Okay. And it's not just like poison in the food. It's like so many things which are connected.
Right.
Take you towards a non-sustainable lifestyle, so to say.
Right.
So when you start identifying those things, you become aware of those things. And I think that triggered it. And then I thought that what could be something which I could do, and I have resources like land, and then something for somebody else. Like growing food. I still cannot imagine that can be anything else which could be more noble than growing food for other people.
Right.
So it was never a business for me. If like I will do this, then I will scale up and have a company.
So there's no business plan and Excel sheet model and stuff.
Don't forget about business plan or a model. Like I said,
I had those, not
she. Thinking through part is her brain, not mine. You have land. Not many people, they just don't have land.
Right.
About doing it, they can't. But I would tell everybody else that you have land, why don't you do it? And then I was not doing it myself. And then one fine day it just happened. So whole many things came together, including Bangalore traffic.
Right.
Just have to get out of that city.
Right.
And move here, and that's how farming happened.
Yeah. So he just came back one fine day from work, and he said, "I'm not going to office from tomorrow." Like a little child who says, "I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to office from tomorrow."
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
I will grow
and
food.
I'm like, okay, now what?
What? Yeah.
Like most of my decisions, I mean, if I had thought it through, it might not have happened and we would still be in Bangalore.
Right.
The more you think about it, The more you plan something, then you just keep on planning and things would just never happen.
Classic analysis paralysis, as they call it.
Yeah, exactly. So I still think that it requires that moment of insanity. And that I had plenty.
Great.
So, I think in that moment of insanity,
Yeah,
I came on one day and said, that's it.
That's a great insight. That's a great insight. That obviously came with several other implications, I'm sure. Your social circles would have been in Bangalore, your kids' studies in Bangalore, and all of that. Did all of that come into play, and could you like quickly reconcile all of that, you think, once you guys moved over and took the plunge to move?
I was not very social anyway, and that's something like she would always tell me, go out. No, why? I mean, go out, let's meet those people. So one was like, okay, so we'll take 2 hours going there, 2 hours coming back, and what we'll talk about. I don't know those people. So I was, in her words, I was very antisocial to start. That's true. So it was like a no-brainer for me. I did not have to adjust to a new social circle because I did not have a social circle there. So her story was probably different.
Yeah. So you can, by now you figured out how polar opposites we are. So which is why I said it's not the two-state story at all. So,
right. And just for our viewers, the two states references, since it has come up, let me clarify that, if you've read the Infamous or Famous Two States book, here is a couple who follow that definition from the book, but as they tell us, the story is very different. Yes, Deeptha, go on.
Right. So, I had lived in Bangalore 11 years by that time. And also home is Madras, Chennai, however you want to call it. So going home was like always a weekend thing, right? You could get into the car, you could drive home.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a huge thing, to leave behind friends and my work, peers at work, colleagues, just this whole network of storytellers, because Chandigarh is not a space, even today, it's not a thriving market for storytelling. So, and I had been among those people who had sort of built up that network and, brought this whole community of people together. So to leave all that, I did feel quite uprooted initially. But I think also that if I think back at a lot of things that have happened in life, wherever, I've been taken out of and sort of replanted, I've been able to find, a situation to
and those experiences of being in multiple cities and indeed multiple cultures has kind of shaped your storytelling as well, right?
Absolutely. So now I can immediately, now that I'm here in a culture which is so diametrically opposite to the one that I come from, I'm able to see where both kinds of perspectives come from, and I'm able to also plug myself somewhere in between. So moving has had its pluses. I mean, it's not like I haven't made friends here. I have in very quick time I've been able to make some good friends. So once you move and your thought process changes about everything, so I think one needs to keep moving as frequently as possible.
Wow. Okay. Rahul, I am personally very fascinated to know how your day pans out, as a farmer.
I don't live at the farm, so I live in Chandigarh, and the farm is there. I probably make visits every 15 days to the farm. I stay there. I have a house there. I stay there and come back. So the day there is very different. So when I'm at the farm, then there's always something to do, because I go there after 10 days. And if it's a harvesting season or a sowing season, then things are pretty hectic. You need to arrange people or labor, or some things have to be done. Because in IT, there are deadlines by client. Here, you have deadlines by looking up
by nature,
weather, nature, how late. You can't go beyond that. You have to. So I need to make sure the resources are there to get the job done. Back in Chandigarh, when the farm part is done, back here now, I am engaged with a few colleges, schools, some NGOs, groups.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot of work now. Sadly, the visits are not happening.
Right.
But I do have an engagement with the college where we actually created this food garden.
Oh, nice.
So we, for last 3 years actually.
Okay.
And DAV college here. So that took some of my time. Then there's a brand I'm developing of my own now. So there's going to be an online platform where I can reach more people, and other farmers can also use the same platform to connect to the customers.
I mean, that partially answers the kind of cliched question I was going to ask you, which is that has your 19 years of corporate experience is that helping you in what you're doing now?
So I do a lot of project or proposal writing work for NGOs.
Right.
Proposals for grant for different things in Punjab specifically. And when that comes, then that's Google worksheet, PPT, and it all starts and it all comes back to you.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that has not actually helped me. It is. It still continues to. I continues to tap into that experience of mine. But sometimes in farming is totally different.
Right.
So in corporate, you are used to something. You give instruction, and you follow it up, and you expect other team or people to carry it out.
Yeah.
But not here. Many times it's like that somebody says that that labor will come tomorrow. I know they will not come.
Right.
No, tomorrow pakka. They said 8 o'clock they will be there. Paddy, your basmati sowing will happen. I said no, it will not. It will not happen.
Right.
So that it's kind of frustrating, but now I think I'm used to that. So I work around it.
What you do is the literal definition of the corporate cliche: getting your hands dirty. Right?
Getting your hands dirty. Getting your hands and feet, on the ground.
On the ground.
Absolutely, yeah.
So both of you are doing like completely unconventional, things right now. So tell us one peculiar challenge that each of you has faced.
So one fine season, we decided that we will, I was checking the market prices for green peas. And we thought, wow, 60 something rupees a kg, and perfect. Then I'll grow green peas.
Right.
So we went looking for the seeds, a special type of implement. So we hired that. We had people who would only specialized in drilling green peas, sowing green peas. So we did all that. We sowed green peas, and really very nice crop, and everybody was happy. Right. And then I asked my nephew there, okay, call up that Artiya, the middleman at the mandi.
Okay.
Let's say we have about 3 quintals of green peas. Let's just sell them at 60 rupees a kg now.
Right.
And then he called me. He said, yeah, hello. I said, yeah, so how much? He said, yeah, he called me. He said, 2 rupees 50 paisa. I said, 2 rupees 50 paisa? I mean, that would not even cover, the mandi is like 30 kilometers from where I have. So, not even cover the cost of diesel.
Right.
2 rupees 50 paisa. Are you sure? Not 25, not even 25 rupees? He said, no, 2 rupees 50 paisa. So we did obviously we missed coming to the market early.
Right.
So that was the learning that, people who would make those 60 bucks would have sown their green peas like a month or 2 months before we did.
Right.
Because they knew the market.
Wow.
And then they were early to the market, and they got the high prices. And he thought, now we are left with all that green pea, what to do? I said, just tell everybody in the village that please come and take as many green peas as possible.
Right.
So
they can matter for a long time.
Yeah, they said, so should we just give them? I said, yeah, just give these things away. People were just thinking that, this guy is crazy. But that was it. I mean, it was again, not business for me. I said, these are organically grown.
Right.
Safe. Just enjoy. And then everybody came. Wow. Somebody took the bora, somebody took a handful, the greens eventually. And after that was it for me. I went into cereal crops. I said no more sabzi, no green peas, nothing. So then I changed my model, but I learned.
And Deeptha?
One thing that I constantly struggle with is being, the work being duplicated or copied by other people, right? And especially now, just the number of storytellers in the country has just, exploded, if I may say so. So there was this one time when, there's a person who called me up and reached out and said that storytelling and, really like to get some inputs from you and so on and so forth. So like Rahul said, in your spirit and generosity, being there and giving.
Yeah.
So I just sort of rattled off whatever I came to know.
Right.
And much later, I come to know that this person had sort of, just verbatim copied every single thing that I had spoken over the phone and had palmed it off as their own. And so this is a challenge that continues to exist even today, especially when you have to put your work out there online.
Right, in public
The
domain,
moment you posted it, you've lost all control of it. Right. And I've learned it also the hard way that you can do it on social media. That's fine. It's a place to be seen, but the real work has to happen on the ground.
On the ground, yeah. You've been at it for some time now, but is there ever thought of a plan B if this does not work out in any way, or doesn't, I wouldn't say scale up because that's the wrong word, but if it doesn't progress the way you guys want it to progress, is there a plan B?
For me, actually, because there was never a plan to came into farming also, things could just happen. So even today, if tomorrow something happens and this doesn't work out for me, I don't think it'll work out in a way like most people say that, oh, so you're not able to sell or you're not able to produce. I think it would just probably be here like, okay, I'm not interested in this anymore. Maybe that's something which might, even if it happens, I would figure out something else to do, which again, as usual, something I'm pretty sure that will happen. Something will happen. Something will come out. So no plan. Plan Wali is sitting next to me.
Right.
No, so I've just learned that thankfully the kind of work that I do is something that can be done from anywhere. There is always going to be a need for stories and storytelling and for a storyteller. Right. So I see that as even if we have to move out of Chandigarh and go to some other place.
Right.
Initially it'll be difficult, yes, but this experience has just taught me that it's possible to, sink your roots wherever you want to, for however long you want to. So I don't have a plan B per se. I do want to focus on writing. So maybe if this doesn't work out, I might still be involved with storytelling, but I may be using a different medium to do it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. So one last question, pardon me for this, cute pun that I came up with, but what would you like to say to people out there who are listening to your story and who possibly want to emulate it? And this is where I came up with something called DRS, the Deeptha Rahul system. Is there a DRS?
Oh my God. Okay. I thought... That's the first. The only DRS we know is this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Oh God, we missed the cricket. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know.
Just truly come to connecting with yourself. Be aware of what drives you, what moves you, and if you can identify that, then whatever you do will become a reflection of your attitude and your positivity. So to me, that's been that. If I didn't have this philosophy when I started out, but when I look back, I think that's been the one thing that's really pushed me forward.
When I now look back, I believe that everybody, including you, everyone has a part to play in this movement, sustainability movement. And very often people say ki organic is not available, the government is not doing anything. Maybe all those things are true. But then there are other players involved in this. And so there are consumers, which is you. There are farmers who are doing their bit. Then there's government who's doing or not doing, but we don't have any control over that.
Right.
So if you're a consumer, start looking for organic food. There is organic food available. Start looking for farmers who can, you can connect directly with. So like I said, everybody has a part to play. So you have a part to play. You're taking our stories to them.
Right.
And people who are listening, they have a part to play. As a consumer, people with land, they could also adopt a model. It will be their own model. It will never be a DRS.
Sure.
They have to make their own model.
Sure.
But, so if, again, these individuals will start being aware and that this is something very basic. It's food which you eat every single day. And you start being aware of that and just do something about it in your own capacity. I think I'll be the happiest person.
Fantastic. So on that note, thank you very much, Deeptha and Rahul, for spending your time and sharing your wonderful insights and you exude a lot of positivity, and I'm sure that message will reach all of viewers who are watching TRLT. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So that was Deeptha and Rahul telling us their lovely story of how they transitioned from jobs in the IT sector to follow their respective areas of passion and become a storyteller and an organic farmer. For more stories like this to learn from and be inspired by, make sure you watch episodes of The Road Less Taken as they drop on the YouTube channel of Nexus Consulting every Friday. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and give us all your love and all your feedback. Till we meet you on the next episode of The Road Less Taken, this is your host, Venky Srinivasan, saying take care, bye-bye, stay safe.